So Dalebrook for me is a place of relaxation. It's almost a mental refresh, swimming in that cold water, and often spend time journaling there, just reflecting on life, thinking about Mitchell's Plain, thinking about the students, thinking about my own life. And one of the passages that actually stand out to me is Proverbs 15, verse 6. And in the message it says, the lives of God-loyal people flourish. A misspent life is soon bankrupt. And that's really I like that verse because it speaks about flourish, and that speaks into what we're doing at Grace Cafe. We want to see students, we want to see them follow Jesus, become those God-loyal people, and we want to see them flourish. And according to Proverbs 15, verse 6, the God-loving people are the ones who flourish. So prior to the 1970s, the Cape Flats, as we see it now and as we know it now, didn't exist. It's only after the Group Areas Act where people of color were moved out of the residential areas into these new residential areas reserved for them, that these communities started to develop. Mitchell's Plain itself started out as a sort of middle-income colored community. But along with that move came, as time progressed, came the rise of gangsterism and drug abuse, and that's a continued scourge for this community, as many of the community members would attest. And what's so striking that, as difficult as this is, and as hard as life can be in places like Mitchell's Plain, I see a resilience, I see a flourishing of community that's really encouraging, that's beautiful. That's special. That's a gift that this community gives to one another and gives to those who come into the space. And I really appreciate that about that. And in talking about all of that, having that picture of this hard, these difficult circumstances and this flourishing, and that's kind of what Grace Cafe is we've placed this learning hub is placed within this community with its hard stuff. And the students come with their hard stuff, the things that they've been challenged with, and their own personal struggles. Yet we see this as a place for them to flourish. It's a place where we long to see them flourish. We long to see them flourish spiritually, relationally, educationally, academically, personally, in every aspect of their lives. We want to see them grow. We want to see them flourish. We want to see them become all that they can be, all that God has made them to be.
Yeah, and because we are here Monday to Friday with the students, we really are able to do life with them. We see them in the ups and the downs, the great and not so great moments, their moments and ours. And I think that just makes it a really personal ministry. Also that it's not just about academics. We, as Dylan has mentioned, we don't want to just say, well, we wish you on your way and there you go. It's just not only about giving them the gospel, but it's the whole of life. It's encompassing everything that they would need to go out into their adult lives and be people who are able to sustain themselves, people who are able to make a difference in the world. A lot of what we teach them is about loving God and loving them and loving other people. And so whatever we're doing here, everything lends itself to discipleship. There's taught where we deliberately teach certain things in like our Bible studies and certain learning to learn sessions, but other things are caught along the way. It's caught when we go on outings, we have them over at our home, we go for walks to the beach, we have braais together, not just in this space, but we are able to do life in Grace Cafe and out of it. And so I think, it's just a really, really great way to be able to just have more of an impact.
My name is Matthew. I'm a student at Grace Cafe. I started this year. I finished primary school last year. Yeah, it's a different experience like between like the normal schools and now this school. It's just like we don't have a lot of teachers. It's just like a few people and a few teachers. Yeah.
The experience at Grace Cafe has been good so far. Like interacting with the other students is really good because at school you don't really interact with everyone. And yeah, at Grace Cafe we like have a better connection with our facilitators than at school. You don't really connect that much with the teachers. So yeah.
I'll say for me, like the work of ministry and the work with God, it made me more disciplined in that part of like Grace Cafe, and it also I grew a lot in it because I wasn't much exposed to such stuff besides my youth group, and that also stopped during COVID. So when I came to Grace, it was like we were getting back into it, and I could say to one of the facilitators that I feel like I'm having a good relationship with God again, whereas I didn't have that for the few months I was at home with COVID, because I didn't like have anyone to speak to. We didn't do any Bible studies, so I can say that I grew in like the walk with God and so.
Yes, it did change the way I see myself a lot. Knowing my students and knowing what each of it means and seeing how I've been doing it like all this time, and I can learn to make it better or use it in a good way. Yeah, it changed. And it changed the way I see things and stuff. I think if I knew it on school, it would have been a lot better. But I'm glad I learned it here. Because like I said, school is like, don't ever fall down. The people who said they would listen or now you're on by, especially everyone's doing it, and I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one and all that.
There's more opportunities here than at school because we have our hero's journey. So Dylan, he helps us with like which field we would want to go in one day, and like we learned a lot about like our strengths. So each day we would like lean into our strengths. So yeah, one experience that I had with Dylan was we went to OMS in town. So like I'm into videography, so that really showed me like what I actually do want to pursue, and it gave me much more motivation and inspiration once I came from home. So, yeah.
So part of loving the whole person, discipling the whole person, caring for the whole person means that we take an interest in the students' lives, in their personal well-being, in their what we call self-awareness. And so we've developed something called Hero's Journey that runs alongside the educational learning journey. And this is where we help the students understand what's right about them, the way they see the world, the way they solve problems. We even encourage them to use part of their learning journey, the time that they spend here at Grace Cafe, to explore potential interests, career opportunities, areas of interest, so that with the view of, after finishing with Grace Cafe, to explore those avenues even further. So what we have created is what we call career sprints, where we set up sort of internships with organizations or with companies, with individuals who can help them in the area of interest or can give them some career exposure or some work experience. But we also coach the student through that whole experience. So we'll work with the sponsor and then filter that feedback we get from them through the student's strength, so they can understand better how they show up in the workplace, how they show up in the world, and how they can better use their strengths.
For me, like, it's kind of steering me into the direction of my career one day. Although at this moment I have like a lot of stuff that I want to pursue one day, but with Hero's Journey I'm kind of figuring out my strengths, and I also want to say what my strengths are. Responsible, developer, disciplined, restorative, and learner. Those are my top 5. So with those strengths, like I learn individually what they're all about and what they're meant for, and like especially the 5, it like identifies me as a person. So it's really helping me and the Hero's Journey with Dylan as the facilitator leading the session. It gives us a lot of insight and it's very helpful.
Yeah, since I started at this place, I didn't kind of know my strengths and stuff like that. And then I felt like I kind of had to adapt and also learn new things. And then when I got to learn about my new strengths. I also found that learner and adaptability was in my strengths. I was like, oh, that's cool because I do figure out things along the way, and then since I got to learn my new strengths, it's like it wasn't there. It's like that it really is true and it really is me and it's really accurate. Things like that.
One of my interests is teaching abroad. And now that I'm by Grace Cafe, I can get to it sooner. It might change, but for now, that's what I'm looking at. And I think at school it will run up in that way.
And our hope is, by the end of their career sprints, which so they usually do 2 or 3 a year, that's the vision, that by the end of their career, that career sprint, they have a much clearer idea of who they are, what they do well, and what they don't do well, so that they know, where they can call on for other people for help. But they also know where their strengths lie and what kind of work they'll be better or best suited for.
Especially like I didn't have mentors since I was in primary school, and since I came to Grace, I did have a mentor, and I would like speak to family most of the time about my things, but then they moved like very far, and then I couldn't speak to them anymore unless it's like over WhatsApp or something. But then I got the mentor, and she comes here every second week, and then I speak to her. Yeah, that's pretty much.
And so the way we're doing it, the Learning Hub, we have endless opportunities now. We feel that we get to make a real difference. We feel that relationships are more real, that it's easier for the students to trust us because we're spending more time with them. And so, yeah, it's just really something that we want to see, not only in Rocklands, Mitchell's Plain, but we also want to see it moving into other areas on the Cape Flats, so that in the future it's not just Rocklands and students around this area, but really making an imprint all over the Cape Flats. And hopefully from there, some of these students will even catch the vision themselves and become, the leaders and the coaches in some of these learning hubs, and be able to pass on what they've been taught to the rest of the youth and the young people on the Cape Flats.
Like if I look at my friends at school, like in high school right now, some of them dropped out, some of them are still in school, but it's just like the environment you're growing in. You should be sure like the people around you value the most. And like, I'm just glad that I'm in the right space right now. Because like if I wasn't like in the right space, I probably would have been in the same place they are right now. Yeah.